Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of the Franchising 360 Show. I am Tim Parmeter, and with me, as always, is Danielle Wright.
Hi.
Danielle, I have this funny feeling this is going to be the best show of the year.
Yeah, because it's the first.
I know, but Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
and
to
Happy
you.
New Year to all
Of
six of our viewers.
Hey, add some zeros, I'm sure.
Before the 6?
Okay.
How was your New Year's?
How's that glass half full thing coming for you?
It didn't last very long.
No, barely. We're day 3? Okay.
No, but
how's the 10 pounds working for you, too?
It's probably a little after the last week, maybe 12 we need.
Okay.
So the number's
going up.
Yes, but I am positive
that it's going up.
It will go one direction or the other. So, did you have a good New Year?
I had an exceptional New Year. What did you do?
Well, one of the fun things about our bizarro existence is we're married. You live in Arizona. I live in Arizona. You live in Florida. That's Danielle. I'm Tim. And we're getting old. So a New Year's in Arizona is actually even a little bit better because by 10 o'clock, you're just watching it on TV and you're like, hey, Happy New Year. And you're asleep by 10:02.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I heard that there are people that do the whole let's watch the sunset and then that's the close of New Year's versus waiting until midnight.
Let's try that next year or this year.
I think I do it every year.
Okay.
We don't always celebrate this.
No,
together.
we're not exactly party animals even when we do.
Right, but we're not together most of the time at this party.
We were this year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah,
Next.
that was it.
Yeah,
so
how do we go from here? How does this pertain to franchising?
It does well. New year, new you. So and we're gonna start off with this episode like fear, right? Because why not? Well, why not? Really? Because but it's fearful, but it's gonna be really relieving to people to know that there's somebody out there to help them.
I get that. Reality show.
We talked about that franchise disclosure document a few weeks ago, the FDD.
Oh, yes.
Right. And if anybody has a hard time falling asleep, just bust one of those suckers out, maybe 2-3 minutes and you're snoozing away.
I'm sure I've got a story for that somewhere deep down. I'll bring it up later.
But we've got a guest like
love guests. You know why I love guests?
Why?
Because then I get to get off the hot seat. Yay!
Yeah, but we're sad when you go.
I know.
So, but we'll miss you. But we have really one of the top franchise legal experts coming on joining us today.
If you do say so yourself.
Well, she paid me to say that. So, but we've got Amanda Dempsey, and because she's an attorney, she's got a really long title, shareholder and co-chair of franchising, licensing, and distribution of the legal firm of Saxton Stump.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
we're just gonna call her Amanda.
It's just Amanda.
Okay.
So really, actually, we got to put an Esquire. Oh, I know. She's really important.
Okay.
But
and she does other things too outside of that.
Like
mom, 2 kids. They're super cute. Wife. She does some professional things outside of that. I don't know that you talked to her about it, but she does a lot of different things outside of the legal stuff of franchising.
She's very, very busy and very well known in the industry.
And she's a very good friend.
Absolutely. And so excited for have her come on and talk a little bit about the FDD. It's not as scary as people think, especially when you have
it is scary
when you have franchise experts like her.
Yes. But what else are you going to talk to her about?
Well,
the FDD is just like an FDD.
I know, but I guess you're going to have to tune in after this commercial break to figure it out.
Yeah, and I'm walking away, right? Because it's not my turn to be on the hot seat.
So you can go sit over there, have a snack, a little glass of water, hydrate yourself.
Awesome.
And then
because you'll bring me back.
Probably. We will.
Okay.
So we will do that. We've got Amanda Dempsey from Saxton Stump coming on next. Talk about the FDD franchise agreement and how a franchise attorney can help you next on the Franchising 360 show. All right, and we are back here on the Franchising 360 show, and we have our guest joining us, perhaps the top legal mind in franchising to ever appear on the Franchising 360 show. Our dear friend Amanda Dempsey joining us. Amanda, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks so much, Tim. And that was high praise, so I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Well, just because you're the first legal mind ever to be on the show doesn't mean you're not the best one. But greatly appreciate you talking. Obviously, there's so many things within franchising that weave into the legal aspect. But this industry is so much about the people. Tell us a little bit. How did you even get into, you went to law school, and then somehow you get yourself into franchising. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I hate to say, but it's a bit of a familiar story to many people in franchising because, as you mentioned, I went to law school, and in most law schools, there's no special class for franchise law, right? So right. I was working as a corporate attorney at a firm, and I was asked to jump in and assist on a transaction. It was a mid-sized franchisor that was being purchased. And at the time, I didn't know much about the industry at large. But all of the people that I was working with were really entrepreneurial, super enthusiastic about this transaction. It was really fast paced, but everyone was really kind and excited to get the deal done. And so I had a great experience, and I just asked to be included on more of those types of transactions when they came up. And so after that, I really never looked back. I was working on franchise deals with the partner that had a large franchise practice kind of from that point forward. And now our team represents, dozens of franchise brands throughout the US and internationally. I still work with clients and entrepreneurs that are interested in franchising, either through, purchasing existing locations, developing a new territory with a brand that they really like and are excited about. And then, of course, with those entrepreneurs that want to start their own franchise. So. Yeah.
So like so many of us in franchising, you just kind of got into it accidentally, and here we are. How many years now in the franchising space has this been for you?
I am in year 13. So lucky number 13. Yeah. But yeah, super familiar story to many people in franchising. I always say it's a large business, but it's a small industry. Yes. In the sense that a lot of us have been in it a long time, but it's not a massive group. So yeah, it's
once you're in, you don't get out, right? And so
right, exactly. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that comes up when people start looking at franchises is this pesky little franchise disclosure document, which maybe is so big because maybe we can blame attorneys for this, but just maybe give us a quick little, what's the purpose even of this franchise disclosure document that we see?
Yeah, so I mean, it can be pesky, and one of the things I try to do with my clients, both on the franchisor side and the franchisee side, is kind of explain what it is and why it's useful to both sides. So it's really a consumer protection document. So the goal of it is to provide information about the brand and the existing locations within the brand to someone that's interested in purchasing a franchise. And the FTC, which is our Consumer Protection Bureau, has said that, this information that's in the FDD are things that a prospective purchaser ought to know, right? So it is formulaic in the sense that all of the information that's in the FDD is required by that federal rule. And so while it can seem large and a bit voluminous, the goal is that a prospective franchisee would have important information that they should know about a brand before they make a purchasing decision. Yep.
And the beauty, Amanda, really is that because of that kind of standardization from the Federal Trade Commission, it makes you, if you look at multiple franchise disclosure documents as a potential franchise owner, they're going to be all pretty close to the same, which should, even though there's a lot there, it makes it a lot easier to navigate, correct?
Exactly. That is the goal of the item format. So if you've ever seen one, which I know you have, but for people who are listening, if they've ever seen one, there's 23 items of information, and those should be the same across each brand. The information in each item is not the same, but the category is the same. So ideally, if you're considering 2 pizza franchises, for example, you could line them up next to each other and look at item 5 and see in each that the initial franchise fee for one is X number of dollars, and the initial franchise fee for the other brand is Y number of dollars.
Are there any certain items that you try to kind of maybe point people to, or even yourself, that really hey, my eye's going to go to this item or this item first? Is there anything like that for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that most people do really look at the financial items. Like they spend a lot of time looking at those.
Yeah.
And those are certainly important. So I don't mean to say that people shouldn't look at those. But for me, I think the items that get overlooked a little bit are some of those operational items. So the items that kind of explain to a franchisee what their obligations are as a franchisee and what maybe some of the limits will be on, their behaviors after the termination of the contract or after they leave the brand. I point that out just because it is a relationship. So although people will be getting involved in owning their own business and, kind of being their own boss, and there's a lot of positives to that, there will be restrictions on what you're able to do. And those come along with becoming a franchisee, really regardless of what brand you decide to purchase. So
having that end in mind, even at the beginning, is always important, correct?
Yeah, and that end doesn't always mean
hey, Amanda, hold that thought, because with the end in mind, that we gotta end this segment, get to some commercials that are paying the bills for us. But let's come right back and talk a little bit more about the franchise disclosure document and how a franchise attorney can help you on the Franchising 360 show. All right, we are back on the Franchising 360 show. Joining us is Amanda Dempsey from the wonderful law firm of Saxton Stump, talking about things we need to be paying attention to while looking at a franchise from a legal standpoint. Amanda, we talked a little bit about some main things in the FDD. When should somebody use a franchise attorney, and maybe what are some of the things that you're going to be able to help people with?
Sure. So I would recommend that folks who are interested in buying a franchise or developing a new territory, that they consult with an attorney, and then, other suppliers within the industry as well, accountants and, other folks who are specific to franchising early on in the process. And the reason is because we do a fair amount of drafting of these types of documents on a regular basis. So if you have a particular question, we're pretty capable of getting into the meat of those questions and finding the answers for you quickly. Again, it's also that FDD is a large document, one that we're pretty familiar with. So, we can help go through that and, highlight the important business points. Certainly the salespeople at the franchise brand are going to be able to help with that as well. But there are things that we look at as attorneys that we can point out for you that maybe they wouldn't highlight as much because they're not thinking about it in the same way we are. So I would say, early on is a good time to just engage with somebody that help you kind of. And
you're not coming in there to say, like, you're really trying to help people understand the language. So, hey, look, man, is this franchise trying to screw me over kind of thing? We're not going in there and like negotiating, hey, let's get this franchise fee down $20,000. It's really just from that pure legal aspect, and making sure everything is kind of the way it needs to be to help that prospective franchise owner, correct?
Right. So there's things about franchise agreements that are standard in the industry. And even though they may be standard to franchisors and franchisees across the board, you should really understand them when you get, when you look to enter into this franchise agreement. So that's really the approach that I take, is more just, this is something you're going to see in almost every franchise agreement, but you should still understand what that means and the implication to you as somebody that's going to sign this contract and be in this relationship for this number of years. So that's really where I think we can be of assistance. It's not so much, negotiating a deal or telling you whether or not to buy. That's not up to me, candidly.
Right.
But it is up to me to make sure you understand from a legal perspective what this contract means for you and for, your assets and your money and your investment.
Now, if somebody's out there, they have a business and they're thinking, gosh, I'd really like to turn this into a franchise, that's something you can help people with as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So our team, we represent dozens of franchise brands, and they're, of all shapes and sizes. Some of those brands have one existing location and they're looking to take their idea and expand it, throughout the US or internationally. And so we can assist certainly with the drafting of those documents. So the FDD, of course, that we've been talking about, getting that prepared for your business. And then also just with our industry knowledge, many people on our team have been working in franchising since the early 90s. So we have a lot of experience with just how to get that franchise up and running, and, can make recommendations to other people that can assist with that as well. So we do that on a regular basis at the firm, and we love working with emerging brands. It's one of the most exciting things that we do, to just see these concepts turn into, hopefully a household name.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? And when you're looking at, and I think as part of the expertise you guys have is that you've been on both sides, from the franchisor and the franchisee perspective. Is there any one thing in the FDD that you would kind of point out that maybe causes people maybe the most concern when they're like, oh man, what does this mean? How does this affect me? Is there anything in particular that really jumps out at you?
Yeah. So, personal guarantees are one thing that people always talk about, right? So, franchise agreements are personal services contracts. So the brand is really approving specific individuals to operate their franchise. And they do, almost every brand requires that a franchisee will sign that personal guarantee. So one of the things that we do is try to talk prospects through what that means exactly and what it is that they're guaranteeing. The other thing is probably transfer restrictions. I get a lot of questions about that. As I said, the franchisor is approving a specific person to run this location, and they want to make sure that it's going to be that person running it.
Right.
So there's a lot that happens in the name of brand protection and franchising, which I fully support, honestly, but I think it can be a little bit confusing and maybe a little bit scary for people. So we just try to explain it the best we can.
Some of the language in there that protects the brand can feel scary when you're thinking about becoming a franchise owner. But once you are a franchise owner, I think people usually want that language to be even harsher, because then it's their brand as well. They don't want anybody else coming in messing that thing up.
That's exactly right. And I do explain that to prospects as much as I can, that the brand protective measures that are in those contracts really protect all of the franchisees within the brand as well, because the brand name that you put out to the public is really the most important thing, and how it's perceived to customers and clients and the people in your market. So the franchisor does retain the right in those contracts to really protect that brand. And sometimes it can seem a little heavy-handed when you're rating it, but that's really the purpose of it. And so when you're within the brand, you really, you want the franchisor to have the ability to do that on your behalf, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, Amanda, all fantastic stuff. I can't thank you for joining us here on the Franchising 360 show. So if you are looking at a franchise or going to look at a franchise, or maybe you want to turn your business into one, Saxton Stump is the name of the firm. Amanda Dempsey is the person you want to talk to. So Amanda, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I had a great time, and I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much, Tim.
Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks so much. We'll be right back with the Franchising 360 show after this. And we are back on the Franchising 360 show. Thanks again to Amanda Dempsey for joining us. But now the woman in green has returned.
I am here. Green means money.
To the hot seat. Did you have any?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, you do.
Okay. So great to have Amanda join us tonight.
Yeah, it was super awesome for you, right? You learn a lot, things you didn't know.
I learned something every single time I talk to her.
What did you learn from her this time?
I think it was a little bit of a reminder of two things. One, we just talked a little bit about the personal guarantee, which is something that kind of freaks people out a little bit. And I love how she talked about, looking at that as that document as kind of the end in mind, because sometimes people think it's going to be a bad thing. Oh, I'm going to fail miserably, but there is an end in mind when you own a franchise, right? One way or the other, it is, you may sell it and it may be the most profitable thing ever. You may pass it on to your kids, whatever it is, but to kind of have those thoughts, because most people, you don't take a job necessarily with that, but with the business, you need to.
Well, I'm going to add a layer to that, if that's okay. I always look at the franchise agreement, the FDD. Yes, you're signing a document that's heavily in favor of the franchisor, but how many investments can you make that have that sense of guarantee behind it, right? And so we don't modify them as a franchise system. We keep them the same, because you've invested money into this business and you don't want Joe Schmo to come along and try to destroy it. And then you have no value too with the end in mind.
That brand protection piece. And that's where some of the things, and even our clients at Fran Coach were like, man, some of this language seems harsh or one-sided. But once you become a franchise owner, it's protecting you.
Yes.
And
the money that you've put into it. And the protection of your family. Same like you're talking with the personal guarantee.
Yep.
Franchise has to protect their rights. You need to protect yours. But the reality is this goes back to something I've said for years. There's franchisor, franchisee, that is the technical term. If you're going into this in any business partnership, it's a partnership.
Correct.
And so you want them to be there to protect you. I mean, there are brands right now that you and I could probably name drop here that the franchisees are probably glad they signed the document that they signed because it has protected them when things have not gone well. And honestly, nothing's perfect.
No, but if you're the person that's going to go into a system as a franchise owner and not follow the plan, mess everything up, then yes, that language is written for you. But when you're like, no, I'm investing the money, this is what I want to do.
Worst case scenario. So you don't go and get a will thinking, hey, I'm going to live forever, right? You're preparing yourself for the worst possible scenario. You're going to do the same thing with a franchise agreement.
And also the best possible thing, eventually you're going to sell it. What has to happen? How does the franchise system help you not necessarily find the buyer, but again, just to make sure that is a
sticky wicket for me.
That is it. But there is that transition in mind. So it's the mind a lot of times for people goes to the negative. What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if this is amazing for the next 15 years and then you sell it? That's all in there as well.
Right. So that's the way it's supposed to be set up.
Yep.
And back to the point of like franchises needing this document. That's why you can't sell a franchise or offer a franchise to sell if you don't have that document.
Without that. And so again, Amanda Dempsey, saxtonstump.com. When you're ready for something like that, definitely reach out to them. Before we roll out of here tonight, we have a question from a viewer, I know, from Raymond in Boise. So Raymond, lucky you, starting off the new year with a Franchising 360 mug.
Love me some Boise.
I know. So Raymond asked, so he's interested in owning a franchise, but a little worried about labor issues.
As everyone is.
And as everyone should be, on the surface, but this is one of those.
Is this a question we're going to answer now, or are we just going to wait patiently for an episode?
Raymond's going to have to suck it up and wait till next Friday.
But that's why you're going to give him a mug.
I'm going to give him a mug. He can put the nice beverage in so he can watch next week with this and listen to us talk all about labor because it is a huge part of owning a franchise.
It is indeed. You have to have people work for you unless you want to do it yourself, and then it's not a franchise.
Right. So, but we'll be back next Friday night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, talking about labor in franchising as a franchise owner and as the franchisor. So that's Danielle.
Hi.
I'm Tim, Franchising 360 Show. We'll see you next Friday night.